EnglishSimmer here, and this video is brought to you through the EA Creator Network. As I did receive early access to The Sims 4 high school years, I decided to basically continue the tradition of having a can we replay, is this worth like value for money, what are you actually gonna get out of this expansion pack type review situation. It's basically a condensed easy version of all of the videos that I've had up about this and whether this expansion pack is actually gonna be worth it for you. So I'm gonna go over its strengths personally to me, its weaknesses personally to me, and also I don't ever really like saying you should definitely spend your money on this, you definitely shouldn't spend your money on this, because everyone at the end of the day has their own opinions, everyone has their own different bank accounts, and we can only judge it on like what we see and how we feel about it. So let's get into it. Also, yes, okay, I don't know about the cap, we're ignoring it. Feel like I'm trying to be a relatable teenager, but really my hair is just frizzy because hot weather and rain do not mix for my little head. Also, please do keep in mind, because this was early access, this is not final software, and any issues that I did run into, I fed back to the team, and fingers crossed they will be looked into and hopefully fixed before release. Starting off strong-ish. So I actually really like Create a Sim. I do think it's a very big catalog. We got over 100 Create a Sim assets for feminine Sims. Masculine Sims didn't get quite as many. However, I do think what is there for masculine Sims is actually done to a very high standard and is a lot more usable than a lot of packs we've had recently for masculine Create a Sim. It's very heavily centered and focused on clothing. Shoes, we only got 2 pairs of shoes, which was a really weird choice. I don't really like that we only got 2 pairs of shoes, especially considering we didn't get many formal shoes, considering we now have prom in the game. I feel like this would have been the perfect opportunity to finally have some like nice looking high heels and stilettos. I don't think you only have to use this for teens in The Sims 4. I think anyone young adult and above can actually get away with a fair few pieces of the clothing. It's very bright, it's very bold, but there is also block colors. There's black and white swatches available for most assets. I feel like it fills in a fair few gaps, things that I've wanted to see, definitely that sort of more preppy style, and also like the kind of goth e-boy, e-girl themes. I really liked all the check stuff. Feel like you can finally add a bit more personality to those alternative Sims that you might have in your game. Would I like to see a little bit more of like the dark academia, because I feel like that's been popping off in custom content. We didn't really see it in this theme. Definitely feel like Create a Sim is lacking in some points, especially when it comes to accessories. I feel like hats, for example, glasses, everything to do with like accessories, makeup can really make a teenager feel like a teenager, can really show off their personality. And whilst this pack does do quite well in that when it comes to the clothes, the accessories are extremely lacking. Also, we only got like 4 hairs for masculine Sims, which just isn't on really, is it? I think they deserve more. We definitely still need a curly stubble when it comes to facial hair in base game, or numerous curly stubbles. I feel for every straight haired beard that we have, we should have a curly textured version of it. Also, we need curly hair textures for the body hair. Again, everything that we're seeing in both base game and the expansion were like more for straight hair, which is unfortunate. Also, in Create a Sim, I honestly would have loved more traits. I know we only have 3 trait slots available. I think teens actually only have 2, which I feel is kind of used as an excuse as to why we don't get that many traits, but I really do think they could have included more. The party one I could have lived without, because I don't really think party animals do that much. They have a couple of cute interactions like party tricks and also like wooing and checking people's vibes, but it's not the most interesting. I much would have preferred a rebellious trait, loud, dramatic, easily impressed, irresistible, so like loads of Sims can have crushes on your Sim. I feel like that would have gone hand in hand with like the high school crush system very, very well. Procrastinator, I definitely think there was a pool of traits that we could have got, and it feels unfortunate that we didn't. We get the personality in the clothes, we don't really get it when it comes to the actual personality. Moving on to build and buy mode, again, again, I actually really like the assets that we're seeing. It was split kind of between the high school building stuff that you would need to make a high school, design it yourself. I will say the high school stuff, there wasn't really much variation on it. There's kind of like one swatch for a toilet and there's one swatch for a sink. And they are very art deco, so I think you're actually gonna struggle to build like different types of schools without having a number of other packs, especially like Discover University, where we did first get cubicles and things like that for the toilets, so do keep that in mind. However, I don't really mind that choice because it meant that they freed up a lot of the build and buy catalog to actually focus on the home and especially teenagers' bedrooms, which is something that I've personally been asking for so much. I think that like teen bedrooms all look the same up until this point. They also have matching like swatches for everything, so you can really stick to a theme if you want to. It's also not only just for the bedroom. There are desks, there are bookcases, there are sofas, so you could have this in the living room, you could have this in a study, you could potentially even make a dining room if you wanted to. So it's not just locked to the bedroom, but that was one of the main focuses. I think it was a good choice to focus on teenagers' bedrooms. However, I will hold my hands up and say I was one on build and buy mode as soon as I realized that the fairground rides, the Ferris wheel, the Tunnel of Love, and also the haunted house were in debug and were also able to be placed anywhere. I cannot wait to start making themed festivals like we had in The Sims 3 for different seasons. Those items are really gonna sell it for me, and I'm just so glad. Like, I hate saying this, but I feel like if I were spending my money on this, that is one of those things where I would have looked at it and been like, I don't think I can wait for a sale. I think I need that in my game right now, and I know it makes me a pushover. I'm just a sucker for those items. I was in The Sims 3, it's really nice to have them back in The Sims 4. However, I do think build and buy mode is lacking in some qualities. I think this definitely would have been a perfect time for a small microscope. I definitely would have loved a like one tile like suitcase record player. We have a lot of records for wall decor in bedrooms. However, we still don't have like a small record player that our teens can like listen to music on and stuff. I would have liked the crown and jester hat that you can actually get at prom to not be unlockable in Create a Sim, because for reals, when am I ever going to use those in Create a Sim? Like, seriously. I would have much preferred them to work like The Sims 3, where you get them in your inventory after prom and therefore you can use them as like a decor, you can tell a story, it's a nice memory for your sim to have. I would have really loved to see a modern chess table. The two chess tables that we got just look like any other chess table we have in The Sims 4. We still don't have a glass one. We don't have chess tables that can kind of just sit on any old table. A portable chess table. Feel like they could have switched it up and they just didn't. More wallpapers too. The wallpapers, like, there was barely any, especially considering that they had such themed bedrooms. They don't really have wallpapers to match. Even for like toddler rooms and kids rooms as well, I feel like if they had focused on like the theming of wallpapers more, it definitely would have added something to the game, because I feel like we don't have that many fun wallpapers and all of my rooms end up looking the same because I usually use the same wallpapers, which is a little bit infuriating. Also, what I will say is the biggest missed opportunity of build and buy mode is that high school is a special lot. You can only build a high school on the 64 by 64 lot in Copperdale. You cannot add a high school to any other world. It's not available in the drop-down menu. I can kind of see why they made that decision, because the teen pool, like in a save, is quite small. I mean, I was playing in that one high school. Fair enough, I only had base game and also high school years installed, and yet in my second week I was getting filled with a bunch of randoms rather than the actual teenagers that were living in my world, which is slightly infuriating if you're definitely gonna be playing Let's Plays and want to follow along with storylines. I hate how they like autofill the school with random townies that the game has created, so I think if you could place more than one school in like loads of different worlds, that would just make the teen pool smaller and smaller and smaller, and then it would just have to generate like randomly generated teenagers to fill them. However, Record Tapes Backwards, one of my viewers, actually suggested a middle ground, which I really would have preferred. And it was the fact that you could still only have one high school in your game. However, the game allowed you to build that one high school in any world that you could possibly build it in, which I personally would have preferred. I do see how, for example, if you're living in Oasis Springs, like that desert world is one of the only desert worlds we have minus Strangerville, and everything else is just like woodsy, outdoorsy, like post-industrial town, which, come on, what is the obsession with post-industrial towns? But I can see how traveling from Oasis Springs to then go to school in Copperdale, like, yeah, fair enough, not everyone goes to school like in their town or like super close to them. However, in a game, it's not super realistic to have like those surroundings change so drastically. I definitely know it's going to break immersion for some of you. I would have just thought it would be the best case scenario if you could build one and the game would limit it to one, but you could build it anywhere. I feel like gameplay is where I'm going to get my most replayability. So how do I feel about when it comes to high school? I definitely think there are gameplay assets that absolutely help with this feeling like you can replay it and your Sims are going to feel different from one another, which, can I just say, is a welcome addition to the game. The drama that you can create, the making Sims feel different from one another, the world feeling more alive. I don't really talk about these all that often in The Sims 4 because they don't happen all that often, so it's nice to see it in this expansion. I think no matter how many times you play high school years, it's gonna feel a little bit different, and that is definitely helped by the fact that the Sims are more interactive with your Sims. I feel like you're gonna be able to play those different stories that you want to, and the game is also gonna slightly guide you in different directions, which I am so happy about. Take crushes, for example. Like, your Sims can develop random crushes on people that they see, probably something that you never ever like thought about. Yes, we don't have an official like attraction system apart from like romance attraction and also woohoo attraction. We don't have like turns on and turns off and like that sort of chemistry system. I feel is gonna throw a spanner in the works. It's gonna feel like fun to run away with. It's gonna like decide your storylines for you. I really like that. You can also choose to get over a crush if it is impacting your gameplay and you don't want it to. Just tell your Sim to get over them and they will, and you can carry on like controlling your Sims the way that you wanted to. I think Social Bunny adds like a fair bit of drama. I think Sims being able to start beef with your Sims on Social Bunny is so funny. I would like to see reactions actually labeled as to who reacted to your Sims thing, because I feel as if that could help with the storytelling. Like, say for example, I had Don Lothario post like a flirty thing to Bella Goth, and then I saw that Mortimer Goth reacted with like an angry little sticker, I'd be like, oh shoot, it's gonna go down between Don and Morty. This is gonna be incredible. So I really would have loved to see that on Social Bunny. I also really would have loved to see like separate DMs. It gets really, really confusing when you're like trying to message a Sim and then you can't see like who you're really messaging and like who messaged you back. How other Sims react to you and how you react to other Sims is great in this pack. Like, other Sims can invite you to parties, they can invite you to like sneak out. I will say I did get a sneak out to a concert. It told me that I could get invited to parties. However, I don't think there were actually active parties like they were in The Sims 3. That's something I've been dying to see in The Sims 4. I just think it helped the world feel so much more alive when Sims invited you to parties and then you could actually go around to their lot and their houses and like celebrate that party with them and their friends. But I think just even like the pre-prom thing and like the after parties that you can get invited to after prom just helps to make the Sims feel a little bit more alive. They can ask your Sims to be boyfriend and girlfriends. It just feels as if the world is moving around your Sim a bit more. They can also react negatively to you, so you can ask a Sim out to prom and then be like, no thanks, not yet, like I don't really know you all that well. And again, it's just that drama. I think that's where the replay value really is in this pack. I will hold my hands up and say school and the jobs can get repetitive, as can the after school activities. I don't really think that that they're the most interesting point of this expansion. I feel as if they kind of maybe weren't made to be the most interesting point of this expansion. I feel like they kind of focused on like the drama and like sort of relationships that your sim can have and like what happens to them outside of school, even though this is high school years. It's not solely focused on school. Like, don't get me wrong, if you've been dying to like go to school with your sims for years, yeah, you can't really interact in class, which is definitely unfortunate. I kind of wish you could choose to like sleep or like talk to your friends or go on your phone. I do still wish that that was a thing, but I do think if this is something that you've been wanting, you're probably gonna get replay value out of it. I do, however, think to make the days more interesting and to actually make school work, you're gonna have to be able to make your own groups. Right now, for example, if you have like 17s in your household and you decide to follow all of them to school, they'll be in one group together. What I mean by group is when like sims have the little hexagon over their head. However, that kind of means that you can't like group up with your friends when you're in school. You can't add anyone to your group. You can't remove any of your household sims from your group. So for example, when it comes to cheerleading, there's a big team cheer mat, and yeah, if you only have one sim in your household who's good at cheerleading, if you then ask people to do a team routine, it's just gonna be your household members and the rest of them are gonna be absolutely atrocious, probably gonna like show up your main sim. I just don't know why that's not a thing. I hope that's something that the team look into and decide to add, because I really do think that like you being able to sit with your friends at lunch, being able to like skip class together would personally for me make school more interesting. I do also think that the different sort of storylines that you can go with, I think aspirations slightly help with this. Don't get me wrong, I don't think they're the best aspirations ever, but I do like that you can drop out of school. I like that you can be expelled from school if you get like far too many detentions back to back. I like how that also has an effect on university. So I do feel like you kind of can define your sim from a very young age, which is something that I really haven't felt like you've been able to do other than in your imagination. After school activities, probably one of the most disappointing things for me. I talked about this in my gameplay overview, but the school literally has rooms set up for each after school activity. There is a cheer mat, there is a football field, there is a room with a bunch of chess tables in it, and there's a room full of PCs. Those are the 4 after school activities that we have. And yeah, after school activities are a rabbit hole that has 3 promotions available to you. It doesn't feel like a team because you never know who's actually on your team. Like, the game doesn't tell you. Even when they have the events that happen after school for them, which to be fair, you have to ask for chess and PC science fairs. They don't just happen automatically. But don't worry, football and cheerleading do, because it's an American high school and sports. Still, even when you go to these events, random sims show up. You can't tell who is on the team. You don't play with them. Like, it's kind of all very solo. You do your own challenge. You score your own points. You don't really get anything for winning those events. So it's kind of just like, why do they exist? I feel like they could have been semi-active where you can choose to go to the club or not. Because don't get me wrong, the gameplay is very full. If you have an after school club, you have a career on top of it, and you also go to school and have to do your homework and study for exams every Friday. It's a lot of like gameplay and it's a lot to juggle, but I would have just preferred the option. And yeah, you can do this if you have get together. You could probably like make your own club, which I actually do feel would probably work a lot better than just like a rabbit hole career. But even then, I don't know if you can set the high school to like a hangout lot because it's a special lot. So I don't even know if you'd be able to like invite the sims from your club to the high school. I actually do want to do a video on that when I get like full access to the pack, how it actually works with get together. But you shouldn't need get together to make your gameplay interesting. That also goes hand in hand with Thrifty. I really like Thrifty. I enjoy the vintage shopping type thing. I like selling stuff on Trendy. I think it's a fun way for your sim to earn money. When I showed up to Thrifty, I randomly had like a fashion show that was going on, and it told me that people were like fashion show models, and yet there wasn't anything to suggest that there was a fashion show going on. There were no objects. There wasn't like a catwalk. Like, you could basically show off your outfit and other sims would like boo or cheer you. And then there was also a poetry reading one in which my sim went over to the microphone, started reading poetry, cancelled out of it, and I couldn't get her to do it again. And I just think that if they had focused on those and like actually made them legitimate events, that's something that I would have loved to have in my game. Would would have preferred it to like the after school activity events, because that just feels like two separate things, like going to an after school club and then having events for it. When the events for it are a little bit lackluster anyway, I would have preferred the Thrifty events to be official. Speaking of Thrifty, I actually think Thrifty itself is gonna add a little bit of replay value. It's a nice way to get your Sims out of the house that doesn't include like partying or going to drink somewhere, as does the pier, which is really nice. I absolutely love the pier area of this world. I personally think I would have preferred an arcade to Thrifty, just in my personal opinion. But I can deal with Thrifty, and I actually really like that the more often you go back, like the more looks that you can decide. I think if you're into fashion in the game, like obviously going to find those like Depop stuff and that like rare stuff, you're gonna probably enjoy, and it probably is gonna keep you going back a little bit longer. Career Day I also think was a big missed opportunity when it comes to replayability. I feel like that could have again thrown a spanner in the works. Maybe you were thinking that your like overachiever sim was gonna be so good at business, like they were absolutely gonna kill it as a CEO in a company, but then it gets to Careers Day and they like go and someone like destroys their hopes and dreams and is like, no, actually, sorry, this isn't the career for you. Like your skills in life so far don't prove that you're gonna do well in this career. Your traits especially probably don't line up to like what we expect of a sim from this caliber. And yet there was none of that. It didn't relate to your sim really. You just go up, you do an interaction, you learn about the career, you talk to your teacher about learning about that career. You also don't even get a notification that says what the career is. You just have people stood around in uniform. So unless you know what that uniform means, then good luck trying to figure that one out. I had a little bit of a teen crisis to be like, oh my god, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life. Like I had my heart set on this one job and they've just told me that I'm rubbish at it. And that could give your sim like the decisive. Oh my word, I've spoken too much. The sort of dilemma to be like, hey, do I actually get my shiz together and like I focus on all these things that they want in this career, or do I maybe go for this career that they've said like I would probably do better at? Like maybe they've said, oh, you'd be really good in the painting career. Like it was literally none of that. And it was so heartbreaking because I feel like that can add replay value. I really, really love prom. It does happen every week. You can decide not to go if you don't want to. But I like the fact that with prom, you can kind of make it your own. You can theme it if you want to. You can change the theme in the auditorium build and buy mode. Like, yeah, don't get me wrong, at the end of the day, the event itself is gonna be the same and you're still gonna go through like all the same motions. But again, I feel those non-played sims in your save can actually help to make prom feel a little bit different depending on how they react to like you asking them. So I'm not gonna lie to you, I watched my summary of the original video and it was absolutely naff. So I sat down, got my thoughts together. In my personal opinion, do I think that High School Years as an expansion pack is replayable? Yes, I'm always gonna think that about these types of packs. Discover University, not my favorite, not the strongest expansion pack, and I will hold my hands up, I probably haven't used it as much as I thought I was going to, but I do feel like University is more of like an opt-in scenario, you know, not like every person has uni available to them, not every person has high school available to them, but I feel like teenagers as a whole, we've been desperate for more content. Uni just didn't feel that different from like gameplay we already had. High School Years definitely feels different for teenagers. Like there was barely anything for teens to do, anything specific to teenagers. And whilst I think a lot of stuff in this pack, for example, the careers being available to adults, the clothing being skewed towards teenagers but also usable in like any situation. Yes, there are things for young adults and older, but teenagers have been so lackluster that this actually does feel like it's giving them personality, it's giving them meaning within the game. If you like Discover University, you'll absolutely like this. I mean, it's basically Discover Uni in kind of a better way because the world feels more alive, people are actually approaching you, those relationships are just a little bit stronger in my opinion, and I really like the fun fair, I really like Thrifty, so I do think it gives your teens more personality, even like I said, without without the lack of traits, without like the focus on career day and things like that. I think if you also have a nostalgia for Generations, this is gonna like scratch that itch a little bit. I'm not saying it's like comparatively the same as Generations. Obviously, Generations had a lot more scope and also slightly went into like a bit more detail. But that's just how I feel generally about The Sims 3 versus The Sims 4. I think I was getting bogged down in my initial video when I did record this because there is personally a lot of things that I would change. I think they kind of cast a really wide net out, but the details that they decided to focus on were just like not the details that I personally would have focused on. That's one thing I don't really like, even though this is about like teenagers interacting, and the school day itself, like the classes aren't that in depth because it's kind of more focused on you making those like relationships with your peers and having prom and doing these events that like guide you through being a teenager. It still feels kind of like a solo gameplay in a sense. I love crushes. I love the fact that other Sims can like say no to you, they can say yes to you, they throw you into situations that you probably wouldn't have thought about. There are consequences. For example, you have the suspicious sentiment, which isn't like the strongest. I don't really like sentiments in the game, but you also have like Sims saying no to you, asking them out to prom, which is really nice. But like the teams and then thrifty and then streaming, even though you can do that with friends, it all feels very like solo interactions between your Sims. So I feel like there's this kind of disconnect between them wanting you to experience those things with your peers, but then also being like, oh yeah, but this is like a solo career. For example, streaming. I would have loved it if your Sims could just stream without being in the streamer career. Yes, they wouldn't have like made that money that a streamer can for doing their work tasks, but they could have still got donations from their friends. They could have still managed to go on like Llama's Lair if they got up their entrepreneurial skill. What do I think makes this replayable? I think the drama that you can get out of it is very fun. Again, I would have really loved to see the reactions on Social Bunny because I feel like that could have added in to the drama. I do think the drama is there. I think you can tell different stories for your teens. Yes, it can be limited. You still have to like heavily use your imagination, for example, with career day and the drawbacks of that. And I really think this could have been the place for like that personality to really shine through. And like in some areas it does, some areas it doesn't. So I'm very 50-50 on this one. From what I played, I actually really enjoyed. Obviously, with such a wide scope of it being teenagers, I think if you enjoy family gameplay, if you enjoy playing teenagers, if you've been dying for something more for teenagers to do, you're probably going to get a lot of replay value out of this because you're going to be going through those motions of life. I think the choice is quite nice. You can decide whether you want to follow them. You can decide to just like send them off lot. It kind of nudges your gameplay, which I quite like. It gives you little like scenarios to run with, which I always personally think is fun. But again, I think there's things that could have been done a lot better to add to the replayability for me personally. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this one. I know this video is a little bit all over the place. I was like, I want to make a more condensed review, and then I feel like I just got lost in the sauce, which I've said time and time again happens an awful lot when it comes to talking about this pack because I feel like there's such a wide net and then I get like focused on the little details. But who am I to judge? I am sat here with my little grey hairs as a 28-year-old. I've seen people say that high school years isn't relatable to them, like even though they left school like a few years ago. I personally think this is still relatable for me. I left high school, college 10 years ago, and like still the T-posing is kind of like drawing an assumption with planking, which was a thing when I was in school. I definitely still feel like it's relatable to me. Am I just holding on to my youth as tightly as possible? Maybe. However, I do wish that I had more control over like who my Sims hung around with at school, who actually was present present in my school, because I think that's going to take a lot of people out of their gameplay, especially if you like play rotationally or you are a storyteller like me and you want to tell those certain stories. It's really hard to know who's going to be at your school, and I just wish that it stuck to a specific list that you could choose, unless the Sims obviously aged up or died. I think the class should stay the same no matter how long you are a teenager for, but let me know what you all think of this. Do you think you're going to get your replay value out of it? Do you think it should have been an expansion? What do you think is really strong about it? What do you think is not so strong about it? I want to hear it all in the comments down below. Please be nice to one another. I appreciate you all so much, and I will speak to you all in my next one. Bye now.